They say good fences make good neighbors, but sometimes those fences hide deadly secrets. It started with a smile over the garden fence and ended with a body in the kitchen. In this quiet suburban street, everyone knew everyone or thought they did. But behind those manicured lawns and polite waves, there was a dangerous affair brewing. An affair so intense, so reckless, it shattered marriages, ripped apart friendships, and left one neighbor lying in a pool of blood. Before we dig deeper, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. This one is going to get dark. It was the kind of neighborhood where people waved to each other from freshly mowed lawns, where kids played tag until the streetlights came on, and where front doors were rarely locked. Claire and her husband, Daniel, had lived there for 6 years. Their 2-story home sat beside a charming cottage owned by Ryan and his wife, Melissa, the type of couple who brought over homemade cookies during the holidays and invited everyone to backyard barbecues. Claire and Ryan became friends in the most innocent way, sharing small talk over the wooden fence that separated their yards. It started with compliments about each other's flowers, then casual jokes, and eventually, deeper conversations. What Daniel didn't know was that their chats began stretching late into the evenings, and that the glances lingered a little too long. One rainy afternoon, Claire found herself stuck at home while Daniel worked late. She heard a knock at the back gate. It was Ryan, holding an umbrella and a bottle of wine. He said Melissa was away visiting family. They sat under her porch sipping wine and laughing. One joke turned into a touch into a kiss. The fence between them, once a barrier, had now become a secret passage. The affair grew bolder. Midnight texts, quick stolen moments in the garden. Ryan whispered promises of leaving Melissa. Claire began imagining a life with him. But in small towns, secrets don't stay buried for long. Melissa started noticing Ryan's absences. Daniel began sensing a distance in Claire's eyes. Daniel's suspicion turned into certainty. One night when he came home early and saw Ryan slipping out the back gate of their yard, the confrontation was explosive. Daniel accused Claire, who denied everything at first. But the evidence was undeniable. Ryan's shirt forgotten on a chair, texts saved on Claire's phone. Melissa, upon learning the truth, was devastated and furious. She vowed that if her marriage was ending, it wouldn't be without consequences. It happened during one of the year's worst storms. Power lines were down, thunder rattled the windows, and the streets were empty. Daniel invited Ryan over under the guise of talking things through. Melissa showed up minutes later, uninvited. The 4 of them stood in the living room, the air thick with rage, betrayal, and heartbreak. Shouts turned into shoves. Glass shattered. In the chaos, someone grabbed a kitchen knife. When the storm cleared, neighbors peeked out from their windows at the sight of flashing red and blue lights. One person lay lifeless on the living room floor. Blood had seeped into the white carpet, and the fence that once symbolized friendliness now felt like a wall between innocence and guilt. The surviving 3 gave conflicting stories to the police. Each one claimed the other was to blame. In court, the prosecution painted a picture of lust, jealousy, and premeditated rage. Some say it was Daniel who snapped first. Others whisper that Melissa had planned the whole thing from the moment she learned of the affair. What is certain is that the neighborhood never felt the same again. The fence was eventually torn down, but its shadow remained in the minds of everyone who knew what had happened. Love over the fence, the neighbors' affair that ended in blood. In the weeks after the murder, the town became a cauldron of gossip. Every trip to the grocery store or walk through the park felt like walking into a courtroom where every neighbor was the judge. Some claimed they'd seen Claire and Ryan together in ways that weren't just friendly. Others swore Melissa had confided in them about doing something drastic. Claire, racked with guilt and fear, barely left the house. Daniel's eyes had turned cold, his silence sharper than any words. Melissa, strangely, seemed more composed, almost as if she'd accepted the chaos as part of her plan. But one evening, Claire found an unmarked envelope shoved through her door. Inside was a single photo, her and Ryan, embracing in the backyard, taken from a distance. On the back, written in red ink, were the words, "The truth always comes out." As the trial loomed, tension between the survivors escalated. The police hinted that new evidence had surfaced, something that could shift the entire case. The night before Daniel was scheduled to testify, another scream tore through the neighborhood. Melissa was found at the bottom of her staircase, her neck twisted at an unnatural angle. No signs of forced entry, no defensive wounds, just silence. Some whispered it was an accident. Others were certain it was payback, either from Daniel, Claire, or someone else who wanted the truth buried for good. Now, with two bodies and no clear answers, the neighborhood's once friendly charm had turned into a graveyard of secrets. The fence that started it all was gone, but in its place was something far worse: fear. Detectives working the case uncovered a forgotten USB drive in Ryan's home office during a follow-up search. On it was a single audio file, time-stamped just days before his death. The recording began innocently of the sound of Ryan pouring a drink, the faint hum of the refrigerator. Then came Claire's voice, sharp and desperate. "We can't keep doing this. Ryan, Melissa suspects something." Ryan's reply was calm, almost mocking. "Let her suspect. She's not going to do anything." Then a third voice, soft, chilling, and entirely unexpected. "You're both wrong." The file cut off abruptly after a loud crash. The question was immediate and terrifying. Who was that third voice? Just when prosecutors were ready to move forward, a key witness, an elderly neighbor named Mrs. Halpern, who claimed to have seen Melissa enter Ryan's home the night of the murder, disappeared. Her house stood open, lights still on, teacup steaming on the kitchen table, but her walker was tipped over by the door. Police combed the area, but there was no sign of her. Some whispered that she'd been silenced. Others said she'd simply fled, unwilling to be dragged into the trial. Claire, however, received another unmarked envelope the next day. Inside, a blurry photograph of Mrs. Halpern sitting in the passenger seat of an unknown car. The same red ink scrawled one word on the back: watching. On the eve of what was supposed to be the trial's opening statement, a sudden fire erupted in the shared backyard between Claire's and Melissa's homes, right where the old fence had once stood. The flames spread fast, licking at both houses, forcing residents out into the street in their night clothes. When the fire was finally controlled, investigators found something. Buried in the charred soil, a blood-stained hammer, its handle wrapped in a plastic bag. It wasn't Ryan's blood, it wasn't Melissa's. It belonged to someone else entirely, and the discovery suggested that the murder of Ryan might have been only one chapter in a much bigger, darker story. And so Ryan's death remains a riddle tangled in desire, jealousy, and quiet suburban menace. The fence that once separated two homes now stands as a rotting monument to a crime no one will claim, but everyone whispers about. Some say Melissa still lives in the house, never replacing the fence, as if daring someone to cross it again. Others swear they've seen Claire walking past late at night, staring at the place where Ryan once stood. But the most chilling rumor? That the real killer is still in the neighborhood, watching from behind curtains, waiting for the next secret worth killing for. In neighborhoods like this, you don't just lock your doors. You watch your fences, because in this town, love and murder share the same address. This is the Crime Pot, signing off until the next true crime that will keep you glancing over your shoulder.